Sinuhe felt the air thicken around him, a cloying miasma of suspicion and fear. The pharaoh's once welcoming gaze had morphed into a glacial stare that seemed to pierce his very soul. Neferhotep, the high priest, glided forward, his crimson robes whispering against the polished stone floor. His voice, usually a smooth melody, now rasped like sandpaper. Intriguing, Sinuhe Neferhotep purred, his eyes glinting with a predatory intelligence. A whispered conversation, a phantom plot, and now, with exquisite timing, an assassination attempt. A convenient tapestry you weave, wouldn't you agree? Panic clawed at Sinuhe's throat, constricting his airway. The name of the traitor remained lodged on his tongue, a bitter, metallic taste. General Djeti, the pharaoh's most trusted advisor, a man whose loyalty was as legendary as his battlefield prowess. But the memory of that fateful night in the Libyan desert played on a loop in his mind, the hushed conversation, the venomous whispers of a coup, and Djeti's name at the forefront. Just as Sinuhe steeled himself to utter the damning accusation, the grand oak doors of the audience chamber burst open with a bang that rattled the very foundations of the palace. A young guard, his face pale as desert sand and his armor askew, stumbled into the room. His voice, raw with exertion, shattered the tense silence. "Your Majesty," he gasped, collapsing onto one knee before the pharaoh. "An attempt. On your life." A collective gasp ripped through the court. The air crackled with a sudden, electric energy. Neferhotep's lips stretched into a thin, cruel smile that sent shivers down Sinuhe's spine. His serpentine gaze flicked towards Sinuhe, a silent accusation hanging heavy in the air like a curse. The pharaoh, a man sculpted from years of wielding absolute power, rose from his throne with the grace of a panther, despite his advancing age. "Explain yourself, soldier," he boomed, his voice echoing in the vast chamber. "Who dared to raise a hand against the king of Upper and Lower Egypt?" The young guard, visibly shaken, stammered a story. A lone assassin, cloaked in midnight black and wielding a wickedly curved blade, had somehow breached the palace's formidable defences, his target the royal chambers. Royal guards, alerted by the commotion, had engaged the intruder in a deadly dance just beyond the palace walls. Pandemonium erupted. Courtiers scrambled for cover, some drawing ornate daggers hidden in the folds of their silken garments, others cowering behind marble pillars, their faces contorted in terror. The pharaoh, his face a mask of fury, barked orders. Elite guards, clad in gleaming obsidian armor, surged out of the chamber in a tide of steel, their footsteps echoing on the polished stone floor. Neferhotep remained rooted to the spot, his gaze boring into Sinuhe. A convenient distraction, he hissed, his voice barely a whisper. "Perhaps your phantom plot isn't so phantom after all, Sinuhe." Sinuhe met the high priest's unwavering gaze, a fire of defiance igniting in his chest. Neferhotep's words were like poisoned darts, aimed to shatter the fragile narrative he had constructed, a narrative built on a foundation of fear and silence that now lay in ruins. But beneath the terror, a flicker of determination sparked. He wouldn't let his fear be used as a weapon, not when the fate of the pharaoh and the entire kingdom hung in the balance. "We shall see," High Priest Sinuhe retorted, his voice surprisingly steady despite the tremor in his legs. "Let us hope the assassin is captured alive. Their confession might reveal a plot far more intricate than you can imagine." The clang of steel from the courtyard outside became a relentless counterpoint to the hushed tension within the chamber. Sinuhe, caught in the web of his own secrets and suspicions, knew he had become a pawn in a deadly game. The truth he possessed, a double-edged sword, could save the pharaoh or condemn him. As the fight raged outside, a battle of another kind unfolded within the confines of the grand hall, a battle of loyalties, deceit, and the desperate gamble for survival. The metallic screams of the duel outside grew louder, a horrifying counterpoint to the tense silence within. Sinuhe's gaze locked with Neferhotep's, a battle of wills played out in narrowed eyes and flared nostrils. The high priest's smile, once cold and calculating, now strained at the edges, a flicker of unease betraying his facade. A bold claim, Sinuhe Neferhotep countered, his voice losing its honeyed smoothness, laced now with a hint of desperation. But confessions extracted under the threat of the executioner's axe are easily manipulated, wouldn't you agree? Sinuhe's heart thudded against his ribs like a frantic bird trapped in a cage. Neferhotep's words were a venomous barb, striking at the very core of his hope. Yet it was the only lead they had, a fragile thread dangling in the abyss of uncertainty. Suddenly, the chamber doors were flung open once more with a bang. A battered guard, his face a canvas of exertion and fear, stumbled back in, dragging a struggling figure behind him. The assassin, a hulking brute shrouded in darkness, his face obscured by a hood, fought against the guard's grip with animalistic ferocity. A gasp erupted from the queen, her hand flying to her mouth as she recognized the glint of a familiar amulet peeking from beneath the assassin's cloak, the very same amulet worn by General Jehuti, the pharaoh's most trusted advisor. A wave of disbelief washed over the court, momentarily drowning out the sounds of the duel outside. The pharaoh, his face thunderous, roared, "Unmask him. Reveal the face of the coward who dared to strike at the heart of Egypt." With a swift jerk, the guard tore back the hood, and a collective gasp resonated through the chamber. It wasn't a foreign assassin, no shadowy figure from a rival kingdom. It was Jehuti himself, his once proud bearing shattered, his face contorted in a mix of shock and betrayal. Sinuhe felt the floor tilt beneath him. Jehuti, the man he'd suspected, the man whose name he couldn't bring himself to utter, was the traitor. But the confusion in Jehuti's eyes, the raw betrayal etched on his face, sent a tremor of doubt through Sinuhe. Could there be more to this than met the eye? Neferhotep, however, seemed momentarily taken aback. His carefully constructed mask flickered, revealing a glimpse of something akin to surprise. But quickly he recovered, his voice smooth as desert sand despite the tremor in his hand. An unexpected turn of events, wouldn't you agree, he remarked, his gaze flitting between the bewildered Sinuhe and the trembling Jehuti. Perhaps the general can explain his unorthodox behavior. Jehuti, his eyes filled with a desperate plea, locked gazes with Sinuhe. A silent conversation passed between them, a plea for understanding laced with a flicker of accusation. Sinuhe understood. Jehuti, perhaps aware of whispers of a plot, had acted on his own, a misguided attempt to protect the pharaoh from a perceived threat. Before Jehuti could speak, however, the queen's voice, sharp as a desert wind, pierced through the confusion. "Look," she shrieked, her finger pointing a trembling accusation at Neferhotep. There, on his arm. All eyes followed her gaze. A glint of silver, hidden beneath Neferhotep's ceremonial robe, caught the light. It was the hilt of a dagger, intricately carved with a symbol known only to a select few, the symbol of a secret society dedicated to manipulating the throne from the shadows. The revelation hung heavy in the air, a suffocating weight settling on the court. The assassination attempt, Jehuti's erratic behavior, Sinuhe's overheard conversation, it all coalesced into a horrifying truth. Neferhotep, the trusted advisor, the viper closest to the throne, was the architect of the entire charade. The carefully constructed facade is shattered on Neferhotep's face. A snarl twisted his features as he lunged for the dagger hidden beneath his robe. But the royal guards, alerted by the queen's cry, were already upon him. A brutal struggle ensued, the chamber echoing with the clash of steel and Neferhotep's enraged screams. As the guards subdued the high priest, Sinuhe stood there, adrenaline slowly draining from his body. He had walked a tightrope stretched over a chasm of suspicion, his life hanging precariously in the balance. Now, the truth lay bare, a testament to the treacherous currents that flowed beneath the seemingly placid surface of the court. But the ordeal was far from over. The loose ends needed tying, the web of deceit untangled. The aftermath was a whirlwind of accusations, interrogations, and pronouncements. Jehuti, stripped of his rank and honor, confessed under the threat of a gruesome torture. He had indeed planned to remove the pharaoh, not out of malice, but out of a twisted sense of loyalty. The whispers of a prophecy Neferhotep had subtly manipulated, had convinced Jehuti that the pharaoh's continued reign would lead to Egypt's downfall. Neferhotep, however, remained silent throughout his trial. His past pronouncements, his subtle manipulations, all pointed towards his guilt. Yet, the only concrete evidence was the symbol on the dagger, a symbol some claimed could be misinterpreted. The very foundation of the secret society relied on secrecy, making it difficult to implicate any other members. Sinuhe, though cleared of any involvement in the conspiracy, emerged a changed man. The ordeal had etched lines on his face, a map of the fear and deceit he had navigated. He became a confidante to the pharaoh, his years in exile sharpening his ability to discern truth from falsehood. The tale of Sinuhe, once a narrative of flight and redemption, transformed into a cautionary legend. It was a whispered reminder that appearances could be deceiving, that trust was a fragile thing, and that even the most loyal hearts could be misled. Years later, on his deathbed, Sinuhe confessed the truth to his eldest son. He spoke of the overheard conversation, of his fear, and of the burden he carried all those years. The son, raised in the land of his father's exile, listened intently. He understood the weight of secrets, the price of loyalty, and the courage it took to speak the truth, even when your voice trembled with fear. The legend of Sinuhe continued to evolve. For some, it remained a tale of redemption, a testament to the enduring power of forgiveness. For others, it became a story of paranoia, a cautionary warning against misplaced trust. But for those who truly understood its depths, it was a story about courage, the courage to face your fears, the courage to speak the truth, and the courage to navigate the treacherous waters of power and deceit.